You can see Dr. Clark is here. He's very interested in seeing the second interim budget presentation. Tag on to what Carolyn Larson said. A couple of things are continue to go on. The audit that the SEC is doing is in progress, and the FICMAP audit for facilities and bond will actually start in the middle of April. They've notified us, and we'll be supporting that probably for 90 days. And then we'll just see how that goes through. And we continue to work every day as much as possible to try to pare down things and get ready for your multi-year projections in the future to make sure that this place becomes highly fiscally solvent and it'll become a better deal. And I just wanted to introduce Dr. Clark, if I could.
Good afternoon. I appreciate the presentation for the second interim, and I was waiting to have this information. So this is good to see that the financials of the organization are starting to stabilize. As Ms. Larson talked about in her presentation, where she showed on that multi-year projection 4 years, you know, when you develop your 18-19 budget, that fourth year becomes your third year. And based on what she has right here, is showing that there's a negative fund balance that year. So let's play that forward. So if we stay with 18-19, and then we look at the two years after that, if something doesn't happen with that last year, you actually move to a qualified status. So I'm glad to hear that that's acknowledged and that we're going to continue to work on it. And I know that there are a lot of different factors that go into those projections, but I'm really looking forward to working with the organization to make sure that we continue to certify the financials of this organization as positive. As Dr. Skvarna mentioned, we have been working with FICMAT to look at the district's adult education program. Hopefully within the next coming weeks we'll get a report from FICMAT. But then the second part of it is to look at the bond program, specifically the two bond measures. As you recall, that's related to the state audit and the allegations that were presented in that report. So FICMAT will be back in, doing a deep dive on the bond program, looking at expenses, looking at how contracts were signed, looking at potential conflicts of interest, and then coming back with a report as they will for the adult education program. I'm optimistic and hopeful that we'll work through this process and that we'll be able to work with the organization to put corrective measures, if applicable, into place. I also want to acknowledge the work of Dr. Skvarna and Ms. Larson. I know they've been working very closely with the board and the superintendent. I think that, you know, for the things that I've seen so far, you know, we have some hiccups and some bumps as we've gone along the way, but I really believe that we're starting to move in the right direction, and I would encourage the board to continue to work collaboratively with the superintendent as well as the individuals that we've placed here via Ms. Larson and Dr. Skvarna to make sure that we keep this organization on the right path. As I mentioned to you when I first came out, you know, when you start looking at a fiscal advisor, you know, that's the first step towards completely losing control of an organization and having it go into state receivership. And I think it's safe to say that no one in this room wants to see that happen. So we're here to stay. LACOE's not going anywhere. We're a partner with you. I know that there's some questions about the roles and responsibilities of the fiscal advisor, and hopefully we clarified those responsibilities. We'll be here to stay the course and make sure that we can get things, you know, solidified and just keep things moving forward. But if there are any questions for me, I'm willing to answer any questions that you might have. Any questions from the board?
I just want to thank you guys for being a partner, and especially during these tough, challenging times. I certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Madam President?
Yes.
I do want to echo, but I actually do have a question for Ms. Larson, just to clarify, because I know there's been a lot of work put into this, and I'm very pleased to hear that we're moving into a positive certification, but I do understand the work is by no measure over. I mean, we do have to, you know, just continue to work. For the benefit of the public, or my own understanding here, can you explain the difference between the total surplus and the ending balance here in the 4th year out? I see ending balance being positive, but unless I misheard Dr. Clark, the ending balance on 2021.
Right. What I was saying was how we've been focusing on what's left over after our assignments, right, would be the -23. However, if you look, right, I gather you're on this slide, right? So if you look, we have some set-asides, we have the stabilization.
Yeah, if you can, and then if you pull up the PowerPoint just so that the public can follow along with the section.
Sure.
Board Member Bellingham.
So I think we're on page 7 of the presentation, and it's the combined general fund ending fund balance. And what Board Member Cardenas is addressing is the -23.3. This is a much better situation than the district has ever had before. It is not something that can't be overcome, in my opinion. It is, we have actually some set-asides above it. The ending fund balance is negative there because we do have some items that we are setting aside right above it.
You're absolutely right. I was in the wrong page. I was in the page prior to that. But
okay,
the point I wanted to make to kind of really follow up on all the work that everyone has been putting into this, since the overall net effect of in this second interim as opposed to the first, because that one-time $10 million, I really hope that we put our minds together to figure out how to best utilize those one-time monies to unburden the general fund so it could have a compounding effect for the 4th year. I think if we can look at any type of situation where we can use some of the money to unburden ongoing expenses in a way that can have that cumulative impact, so we can continue to kind of chip away at the -23 of the 4 year. I would like to see. I know I mentioned this in the past, and there's a couple of options that could perhaps help us do that. But if we can kind of put our efforts in that, I think this is a good opportunity for us to figure out how to best utilize one-time monies when we get them, because they're just few far in between. So that's my only recommendation, and I would like to see maybe staff bringing up some recommendations to the board to consider. But other than that, I'm pleased that we're in positive. I know it's been a lot of work, and there's more work to be done. But just to echo my colleagues, we're very appreciative of the partnership with LACOE, and I know that it's been a pretty laborious and extensive process, but we're committed, and I think if we continue to put all the great minds to work, we're definitely going to get there. So thank you so much.
I also, Dr. Clark, wanted to also thank you for the partnership with LACOE. I know as, we come into these relationships, we need to get to know one another, and, like you mentioned, there's been some bumps in the road, but I think that the bottom line is the goal is the same, right? For LACOE, for all these different constituencies, for us as a board, which is, we're here for students, for our staff, for families. So I thank you so much for also Mr. Skvarna being here with us, and we look forward to the, work ahead of us. We still have a lot of work to do, but thank you so much for being here. So with that,